Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public. And we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Thursday. It is February the 6th, and it's a forkin' interesting day to be a federal employee. Everybody is getting put to the decision for all their chips. Today is the day that the decision must be made. Do you take the fork? Do you take the buyout from the Donald Trump administration? Do you take it in good faith that even though they're under a continuing resolution, they will be able to do what they said they'll do and they'll pay you out until the end of the fiscal year? Or do you decide to stick around and find out if you're an essential worker or not? A lot of you are not. If you're a federal worker, the odds are you're not essential. Do you know that? You already know that. If you work for the federal government and they shut down occasionally, which they are wont to do, I lived through 2 of them in just 6.5 years. If they sent you home when it's time for a sequester or for a temporary shutdown or any of those things, then you are not essential. And maybe you should think about taking the fork. Today's your day to decide. We're going to get into that. I just got a forwarded memo from the Attorney General talking about the weaponization working group. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about the mainstream media defending everything FBI. God forbid we go after the most important entity that has been attacking our political foes. They are all in on that. And we find out that the government has been actually funding a lot of the leftist media that we've been watching. There's a moderation thing on there. We'll talk about what that is. But millions of dollars in subsidies to groups like Politico, hundreds of thousands unearthed so far going to the AP and others. That's all really interesting. We're going to talk a little bit of foreign policy stuff. The other day, Trump said that he was going to apparently annex or take over Gaza. Very weird, but I got the press conference piece here. Didn't cover it yesterday, so we'll do it today. A little bit about Iran. We're going to just touch a whole bunch of stuff because today is an interesting forkin' day. And whenever I get to use that dad pun, like I said, we dedicate it to all the dads. If you're not following us over on all the various places, let me make a pitch. You can see us live on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. You can follow us live on X if you want to see the podcast over there. The locals channel, KyleSeraphin.com, is how you guys join our locals community. And we do a call-in show. Tonight is the night for that. It's Thursday. And if you're looking for the replay and you want video as well, let's say you're listening on Apple or if you're listening on iHeartRadio, you can find the video on Spotify. So if you're already a Spotify user, great. If you're not, go ahead and follow us over there. We'd appreciate it. And you can get good video right on your phone. Very easy. Sometimes you got to put it down. But yeah, let's grow that Spotify channel. I would appreciate it if you guys were so inclined. Let's go ahead and start off with the sponsor read because they're the ones who keep the lights on over here. We literally have multiple lights that are on all around me. Showed it to someone the other day and they're like, yeah, it's kind of a pro setup, isn't it? Yeah, I like to think so too. So the folks at Patriot Mobile today, patriotmobile.com/KSS. They're letting you know that just because we won the election, the fight to restore this great nation is only beginning. We are seeing that in real time. It's time to take a stand, and Patriot Mobile is leading the charge. They are America's only Christian, conservative, wireless provider, something you guys are all going to need. Patriot Mobile offers a way forward. You can vote with your wallet without compromising on quality or on convenience. It isn't just about providing exceptional cell phone service. It is a call to action defending rights and freedoms. That seems to be what the MAGA movement's all about. I think a lot of you guys are on board with that. With Patriot Mobile, you get outstanding nationwide coverage. They operate on all 3 major networks. If you currently have cell phone footage today, if you have cell phone coverage rather, you will have cell phone coverage with Patriot Mobile because they operate on all of them. They have a coverage guarantee. The difference is US-based tech support, and that every dollar you spend is going to support the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, the sanctity of life, veterans and first responders, things that we all kind of care about here. Switching's easy. You can keep your number. You can keep your phone. You can upgrade either or both if you like. Go to patriotmobile.com/KSS. It's the only one that has a different promo code, KSS. Some sort of scheme to have a second Kyle out there in the world. There needs to be a Kyle death match so I can be the top Kyle. But again, patriotmobile.com/KSS. You can also call them if you guys are so inclined. It's 972-PATRIOT. Use that promo code KSS. Saves you a free month. So 1 out of 12. That's not nothing. Let's get in today's news. There's a bunch of it we're going to get into. Getting fueled up here. Yeah, I got to take a deep breath. There's a lot going on. Let's start off with a video piece. Again, Donald Trump saying some wild stuff. I don't know if he's just messing with Bibi Netanyahu. I don't know if he's trolling the left. What he does find is that people who listen to him immediately react. We kind of talked about it being the laser pointer situation where he's playing with the cats that are the media. How funny that some of the media has been defunded. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but a lot of them seem to have lost a bunch of money when they turned off the spigots over at USAID. How weird. USAID was funding US media. US media then in turn was very favorable to the people that were funding USAID, which were in fact people in the government. A lot of them on the left. This swampy stuff is pretty wild. And so I'm a big fan of what's been going on with DOGE only because I think it's disruptive, and anything that disrupts the government makes me happy. It means if they're focusing on themselves and how to stay along, how they can keep the gravy train running, they're not focusing on you and your civil liberties, which is what's been going on for quite a while. More on that in just a second. Let's do Donald Trump taking questions that seem like advocacy positions. I didn't know that Gaza was a sovereign territory. What is a sovereign territory? I mean, theoretically, it's part of Israel. That's what I understood. They just have all these fantasy ideas that just sound like leftist talking points. They're not really doing journalism anymore. They're really doing advocacy on behalf of their preferred either outcomes or positions or their biases, and they don't even want to acknowledge it. Anyway, here's a kind of a redheaded lady talking about that. It's kind of fun to watch. I can't remember. She looks familiar. Maybe you guys know who she is.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister. You are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there, redevelopment? And Mr. Prime Minister, do you see this idea as a way to expand the boundaries of Israel and to have a longer peace, even though the Israeli people know how important that land is to you and your citizens, just as the space is inherited by the Palestinians as well?
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent.
What is he talking about? We're going to have some condos there. It's going to be beachfront property. Everybody's always wanted to move to Gaza. Now that it's been leveled, it's just so weird. It's such a weird thing to come out and say. And you can look at Bibi Netanyahu, all these people that have zoomed in on his face, and they're like, I don't think he told the Prime Minister of Israel that he was going to go ahead and float this out there. It just seems like it causes chaos. It's really funny because all these people just kind of melted down on it. Anytime Donald Trump says something wild in the foreign policy sphere, you just watch everybody just sort of react without any thought, and they just don't go well, let's just see what he does. What's the expression that the kids are using now? They say, let him cook. Let him cook. Just see what happens. It's an interesting proposal. I have not heard anybody say, the problem with the Middle East is the United States hasn't just freaking conquered it. So why don't we just come in? But that was kind of the ongoing joke for those of us that were in the GWAT. Anybody that signed up in the military, basically post 9/11, was kind of saying these people seem to suck. America wants to export democracy. Make it all America. If we're going to have an empire, stop pretending. There's a strong argument for that. There's a lot of apologies that go on the leftist side of the American political spectrum, but actually like all of the Western world, they apologize for conquest now. They didn't used to do that. If you guys recall, I watched this thing, Rogue Heroes. It was on the founding of the SAS. And a lot of it has to do with the conflict that the United States got involved in very late, but the British were involved in Africa. And so people don't realize that one of the major theaters, I guess some people don't realize, the major theaters in World War II, it took place in Africa because there were supply lines that were happening there. There were strategic territory grabs. There was a big colonial empire that was being sort of defended and sort of just, it was on the outs. It wasn't as cool as it used to be, but they still had all this territory. And they didn't apologize for it. They were just like, oh, these are uncivilized savages and we're going to go and conquer it. Is that a great attitude? Probably not. But it is funny that in 100 years, less than 100 years, the attitude has gone from you can't handle your own affairs, so we're going to come in and handle them for you. And now we apologize about that. My wife and I are having this conversation about Indian reservations in the United States. It's the same attitude. How is it that you get special privilege? I've been revisiting some of the damages that have been done by the FBI because we're pursuing lawsuits right now. We have a favorable administration. We're looking into the lawsuits and it's like, what kind of damages do we actually experience? Can we document any of it? And one of the things I can document is that the federal government didn't hire me for 7 different jobs of which I was well qualified. They were all special agent investigator jobs. I'm grateful that the things turned out the way they did, folks, but it's very strange to go back and look and go like, oh yeah, I was applying to be a small business administration special agent. I was applying to the Office of the Inspector General for the Postal Service, for the VA. These are jobs I would have happily done, by the way. I would have never done this podcast. I would never be sitting in front of you right now. But 7 of them got turned down, and I was the most qualified applicant. The reason I know that is because I was an FBI agent, and I had all the things required. There's other funny things, though. You get preference for being a veteran. That makes a lot of sense. You get preference for being an American Indian in this country, which some of you don't realize, including if you're going to go back and police an Indian reservation. That doesn't make a lot of sense because either they are a conquered nation or they have some sort of favored status. But all of that is goofy. And again, it's this apology attitude that has changed. It is the way that the left has reshaped conquest and empire and strength. They've actually tried to redefine that as being a weakness and a problem. It's new, relatively. I mean, it's just a couple generations old. And so it's that thing that the people who didn't achieve it are now apologizing for the great success of their ancestors. Very strange. It's a nasty thing to see in Western culture. And it only comes from people that have only experienced soft and ease. And that's why you have that kind of 4 cycles of hard men making the world better, and then people being able to enjoy it. And then, of course, it gets easier. And then those easy living men make the world worse because the technologies and all of the things that are benefiting their lives, they never had to earn it. And so anyway, if any of you've never worked for anything, you see this in families as well when it comes to generational wealth inheritance. A lot of times people are super motivated. We're seeing kind of like generation 2 or generation 3 in the Trump family, and I'm sure they work pretty hard, but the ones after that, you got to keep them, you got to keep sending them to construction sites like Eric Trump talked about on our program the other day. Like, he wasn't on our program, but we played the clip. He's talking about how he got sent off at an early age to go work for less than minimum wage. You have to do that if you want to be able to continue that kind of hardness. Basic values. Anyway, another value is strength and deterrence. Like, don't screw with us. The Biden administration let us down on the world stage. So I got a little video of Donald Trump talking about Iran. Kind of funny. Like the dead man switch, a guy holding onto the bomb. Like, if you screw with me, like, we're going to take out your entire country. He makes this claim, which people also lost their minds about. It's really, really obvious that if Iran comes in and tries to screw around with the leader of the United States, there should be no more Iran. So Donald Trump just says it out loud. And like I said, I'm loving this sort of new transparency, less, he almost always tried to shape things in favor of winning people over on both sides. He's not even trying anymore. And that's actually what people voted for. I think, just plain speak, if you screw with us, you're done. Watch this.
If you're unhappy to sign it, if it's Iran, and their proxies who have threatened to retaliate against you and your team by killing you guys for taking out Soleimani.
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do, not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated. That would be the end. I've left instructions. If they do it, they get obliterated. There won't be anything left. And they shouldn't be able to do it. And Biden should have said that, but he never did. I don't know why, lack of intelligence, perhaps. But he never said it. If that happens to a leader, or close to a leader, frankly, if you had other people involved also, you would call for total obliteration of a state that did it. That would include Iran.
Straightforward. Don't mess with us. We'll kill everyone you know. We'll kill everyone you love. Is that gangster? Yeah, it is. But this is the United States. You don't get to come and mess with our leaders. You don't get to come and put out your propaganda and act like you're going to be able to do something that you can't do. In any case, let's press on. The foreign policy stuff is always the least interesting, but it is funny because it's gotten people running left and right. Let's talk about the fork, because I can't help it. It just makes me smile. Probably the least hated part of the federal government. I think the IRS and the Department of Education both sort of hold a special place of loathing for anybody with semi-libertarian sympathies, anybody that is a conservative on the right. You just don't want to be screwed with. The Department of Education staff has been warned that Donald Trump's buyout offers could be canceled at any time. Today is the day. They've given you notice. It may stick around for a little longer, or you might be forked. I can't help it. This is NBC News. They said in a staff meeting Wednesday, leaders at the Department of Education told employees the Trump administration's resignation offer comes with some major caveats. More importantly, it comes with a timeline. Top officials at the DOE, again, that's education, not energy, told staff Wednesday that if they accept the Trump administration's deferred resignation package, the education secretary may later cancel it, and employees would not have any recourse, potentially leaving them without the promised pay. I don't think that's what's going to happen here. I don't think that's ever been the thing. But basically what you've seen is a whole of government move attempting to say that even though they've made some promises to you, they're willing to screw you over. Can we talk about a major difference between government work and business work? There are people in business that are honorable. There are people that can do things based on a handshake and giving their word. I'm a great example of it right now. Okay. I started this podcast. And the folks over at Catholic Vote, I don't know if I've ever shared this publicly, but I might as well tell you guys. The folks at Catholic Vote underwrote this podcast. They said, we want to make sure that your family doesn't go hungry. So on the deal that basically was a handshake and an agreement between two grown men who just said, let's not make perfect the enemy of good enough, we operated with no contract. We had no contract for advertising. They simply paid us every month to keep us afloat. As I said, we could have floated the entire time that we had Catholic Vote underwriting our program without any other sponsors. And it allowed me to be picky enough to not have to say yes to things that I wouldn't otherwise agree to. They helped reinforce the principles that have founded this program. That's why we only take on advertisers that we agree with. And they're the ones who did it. It was a handshake deal. And it went on for 2 years. I have a handshake deal with Patriot Coolers, who's one of our longest sponsors as well. It's just two people agreeing that they want to support the program and what we're about. There's no contract. There's no signatures anywhere. That's not something that people in the federal government are comfortable with. If you've ever signed up for an enlistment contract, if you ever sent your kid to the MEPS, the Military Entrance Processing Station, I think that's what it's called. If you send them in, if you ever try to get a government job, it better be in writing because you think that they will screw you. That means you're dealing with something that is a dishonest organization. There's no sense of what you say will hold you bound. There is no verbal contract with the federal government. If it is not written down, then you're going to get screwed over. That's an attitude that you have. And so federal government employees look at this all the time. What can I claw out? Is it wrong? No. But is it an attitude? Yes. They're constantly saying, what's in it for me? For all of the people that you hear say that they are servants of the people, I have X number of years of public service. If you're constantly looking at yourself and believing that your job, that the purpose of your job is not the mission set that you are doing, if you are disconnected from the mission and you are simply focused in on what does it do for me, what have you done for me lately, then you're going to end up in this real nasty place. And our federal government has done that to its own employees. They did it to themselves. I got another story here, which for some reason, some pictures that I pull down from various websites will actually disappear on the podcast while we're doing it. So it's actually gone right now. I'm not going to go pull it again. But the headline from CBS is that millions of federal workers face the deadline today on whether or not to resign, aka the fork. Here's what to know. And they have all these ideas. The media has been kind of sculpting this narrative that at any moment, the Trump administration is going to screw you over. I've talked to people over at OPM, and this is part of the just trust me because I'm not going to say their names. But senior people, folks that are at the top of this decision-making tree. And what they're saying is in good faith, we would like to not go to war with the federal workforce. Some of them have to go. They already know who they are. They've already self-identified because they don't have to go to work whenever there's a federal shutdown, as I alluded to as we opened. And what that tells you, if you don't have to go to work, If your job is considered non-essential, it means that your job function, right, and your job description and the reason that you perform the job is disconnected from the actual function of your agency. You're not necessary. You're simply part of a federal jobs program, which Democrats love to grow, and to be honest, so do Republicans. They all love having more and more people, constituents who are beholden to them, but not because they're doing the job. This is the problem with that NEA video of the woman who's screaming the other day and maybe doing a Nazi salute. She's like throwing her hand up, kind of crazy, right? She's screaming, "We will win, we must win, we have to win all the things." Why do you have to win all the things? It's because being a teacher is disconnected from the mission of being a teacher. The Department of Education is disconnected from the mission of education. It's because school administrators are no longer directly tied to the results that we would like, which is to see that our children are educated and they come out with more information. That's actually our palate cleanse today. A really, really cute 27-year-old gal sitting in an office realizing she's been done wrong. And I love humor that is both self-effacing and self-reflective. You know, it's sad to think that when your job has nothing to do with what you are designed to do. Every part of the military should have something to do with the mission that actually ends up with the pointy end of the stick going into the bad guy. If you're a cook, your job is to fuel with calories the warfighters and the mechanics and the maintainers and everybody along the logistical supply. You're supposed to fuel the people who do finance so that those people can get paid, so their families are taken care of, so that the warfighter can go do the job of a warfighter. This is why Pete Hegseth was the choice. If you have disconnected your function, if you don't understand that you're part of a team that prosecutes a specific mission, the DOE's mission should be better education of the American child. It is not doing that. So it's got to go. And it's very obvious to people like Donald Trump who look in there and go like, why are we doing this? Okay, here's another good example. You're seeing the media cry about this. This is ABC. By the way, ABC has been doing some of the best down the middle reporting for any of the left-leaning, left-affiliated groups. So I'm actually going there first today. I start my day off with ABC now. West Point has disbanded student clubs related to gender and race. Why would that be? Because when you get an email from somebody, and I used to get this when I was working in federal government service, it would say at the bottom of them, a member, president, chapter, whatever, secretary, treasurer of Blacks in Government. Do you know how absurd it is to get that? Because all I got to do is hold up the idea of working in the Blacks in Government Professional Association and say, would it be appropriate to have a whites in government? What about Asians in government? Why is it okay to say any race in government and then make a club about it? And specifically at West Point. West Point, the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, which is the Army's academy, why would we allow people to segregate themselves based on race? It's absurd. When you're in the military, it doesn't matter the color of your skin. The goal is that everybody bleeds red and you're all supposed to wear either blue or green. You're supposed to be part of a team. So I think it's disgusting. The Society for Black Engineers, the Latin Cultural Club, the Society of Women Engineers, the Native American Heritage Forum are the ones that were ceased operations because you're supposed to become a flippin' soldier. You're supposed to become a leader. And West Point has kind of this really interesting reputation of putting out some that are fantastic leaders and people that would fight to do anything for you. And some of them never learn the lessons, maybe because they've been segregated off and told it was important that they had black skin and therefore they should be a black soldier. You don't get to be a black soldier in the American Army. You get to be a soldier. It says the same thing on your name tag. It's the same when I was in the Air Force. Now, the Air Force and the Army have some fun things. Nothing more fun than being a guy in the Air Force who goes over to do Army training when they yell at you like, hey, airborne, like do this. And I'm like, it says Air Force. I know you guys are illiterate in the Army. It's not your fault. Or they call you Chair Force. And then you start telling them about the kind of chair that you got, which confuses the living hell out of Joe. Joe is the name of every soldier that you deal with if you don't know their name. And when Joe finds out that you actually got a chair coming out of basic training, I'm making this up, obviously, but they didn't know that, they get really upset. And they go find their sergeants and start talking about it. It's very funny. Telling a 17-year-old boy that you got a really nice chair with your name embroidered on the back of it and like an etched plaque because you were the chair force. That is funny. The inter-service rivalry, fantastic. That actually hones mission readiness. But breaking up inside of it based on race or gender or your sexual orientation is flippin' absurd. There's no good reason for that. The changes were made in accordance with Donald Trump's presidential executive orders, Department of Defense guidelines, and the Department of the Army guidance, all of which have come down and said, if we want unit cohesion, and by the way, this is across the entire government, unit cohesion should be focused on the mission. And that's kind of the theme of what we're going to get into for the rest of this today. I'm going to show you some funny little things they're doing. And you'll notice the media is up in arms about it. They do not want to see Americans unite behind common banner. It's the reason why the Pledge of Allegiance is controversial, why holding an American flag is uniquely a conservative thing at this point. They've done a great job driving a wedge between Americans, because American is not the first thing. I put it in my bio when I actually describe, people go like, well, can you describe yourself? It's like, sure. How about in order of importance? It's real simple. Husband first. My wife came before any of the kids, and she gets to predate them. Father, second. My most important role outside of being a husband is being a father. Third, American. I'm a citizen before all else. I had other jobs. Sometimes I was an enlisted guy. I was also an FBI agent. I also used to work in finance, and I've waited tables. I've dug ditches as well, as my dad would like to say. I've run a shovel with my hands for a long time and put calluses on them. None of those things defined who I was. Those were roles I filled, but I was always an American through all of those things. And if we could get our people in the service to understand that, it'd be really simple. That's what they've done away with. And that's why you don't have pride. That's why you have to make America great again, because people have to realize the thing that America is worth being proud of. I had a few moments when I was overseas, when I was in my 20s, early 20s. Lived in Europe. I lived in England outside of London. And for a little while, I was like, oh man, they're so sophisticated. They're so culturally interesting. You get this sort of Anglophile moment where you're thinking like, man, this is where we came from. This is where this country evolved out of. Listen to these people. They have posh ways of discussing things. And the more and more that I heard British accents of various types, the more and more I came to realize, screw you people. I'd rather hear freaking New Yorkers. I definitely would rather hear somebody from Mississippi. I want to hear people from the Midwest. They're all better than you because we won. You took the greatest military in the history of the world and you came out here to tell a small colony what to do and you lost. Why was that? Grit, determination, self-reliance, religious liberty, the ability to speak freely and not bow down to a king, but bow down to God only. Those are really unique and fundamentally like changing for a people, and a free people fight differently than others. You can't get a slave to fight the same way. You guys saw this in the Spartan 300 movie, which was obviously a comic book interpretation, but free men fight for their own freedom in a different manner than slaves and conscripted soldiers. And that was always the point. Why are we not proud of that? And why has anybody taught the youth to be ashamed of it? It's a shameful operation and it should stop immediately. All right, that's my 2 cents. That's my soapbox. But that's what's going on right now. And so you're seeing this turn. You're going to hear the machine creak, moan, and cry about it. They are very, very reticent to accept the statements that Donald Trump is doing and the way that this cabinet is pushing forward. And more on that in just a second, because there's quite a bit of it that is happening both mechanically. And of course, if you guys follow this podcast, you're going to find that some of this stuff relates to my ex-girlfriend, the FBI, and relates to the things that me and my friends, the Suspendables, have done. Now, we're just ordinary guys. We should have always been ordinary guys. We should have just been left alone to do the job because we cared about the mission. It turns out that was fairly exceptional, which is a truly sad moment. So we'll get into more of that in just a second. Before we do, I want to say thanks to the folks at My Patriot Supply. And these are people that keep me having a little bit of peace of mind. I really did. I thought we were going to have a civil war or at least some kind of conflict around us. If you guys have any concerns that in the next 25 years something could happen in this country, you should build up a food supply just to be able to have an insurance policy. It's a fire and forget thing. They last a very long time. We're going to go ahead and just say this just because we're feeling good about the way the country's going. And I do see the news cycle turning in our favor. It doesn't mean that I don't go to bed and wake up with some concerns. And I think a lot of you do as well. And when you let your guard down, that's when bad things happen. I've prepared for emergencies. You should do the same. We've got 2 90-day food kits. You should at least start building up. This is an entry-level way to get it done. PrepareLikeKyle.com. It's the only brand that's in our house for food security. We have locked up 2 90-day supplies. You guys can get the 4-week emergency food kit. So that's the 1 month instead of the 3 for $50 off right now. It's under $200. It lasts for up to 25 years. It's packed in stackable buckets. It's very easy to do. It's the 4-week emergency food kit. It's got all kinds of different meals. They're going to have varieties in there so you're not eating the same darn thing every day. And they've got warehouses all across America. So My Patriot Supply can send you it like as little as 1 day. It ships very quickly. That's nice. US based. It's preparelikekyle.com. There's no promo code needed. You just go to the website, and right now you'll see they're advertising the 4-week emergency food kit. They're giving you the deal. There's no reason to wait. You want to make sure that you're squared away now before anything else could happen. And you want to do it in the good times. Like, what do they always say in preparations? They say it's better to be 10 years early than 1 day late. And that's the case for this. So preparelikekyle.com is where you can go get an emergency food kit. Like I said, I spent my own money on this. The first month that they sponsored us, I just turned around and gave them their money back, and I took in the product because it's worth having. So check them out. Let's do another quick story. This one is kind of like, I shouldn't be as like happy about it, but I guess I am. Maybe it's because I just don't like this lady's face. Can I just admit that out loud? I don't know anything about her other than her face and the fact that she has focused on diversity, which is the opposite of what I care about in my Coast Guard. What I care about in the Coast Guard is, can you defend the coastal regions? Can you do the border mission that you are required to do? Are you doing the safety in the ports? Are you empowering the sailors, the people who are awesome that are out there doing really cool Coast Guard missions, drug interdictions, illegal alien interdictions, terrorist interdictions? You know, we saw some of the Coast Guard's high-speed teams a couple of years ago, like bareback riding a drug smuggling submarine. Like, the balls on the guy that decided to do that breach, that transferred from a cutter or a smaller vessel and then went into like a rigid inflatable and jumped on the back of a drug sub where they didn't even know it. And he's riding on the back through the ocean going at like 20 knots. And then he pops open the thing and they go and they take over the sub so they can interdict whatever the hell's coming in, because it could be bombs, it could be people, it could be narcotics, it could be other weapons, like all kinds of stuff. That's what's important. High competency, sharpening the spear, steel sharpening iron. Instead, we've got this lady who was talking about how it's very important for people to be promoting diversity. Her name is Linda Fagan. She's the first female Coast Guard commandant. And the story here, I started reading this and I was literally laughing out loud at it. I just don't know other way to do it. It's just funny to me how they called it petty. Imagine this. So I'll just read you a little piece of the story here. Donald Trump's administration evicted, that's quite funny, former Coast Guard Commandant Linda Fagan from her home that we own, by the way, the American taxpayer does. With 3 hours of notice on Tuesday, not even enough time to gather her personal effects, said two people familiar with the incident. She's a 4-star admiral, the first woman to lead a branch of the military. She was the easiest to remove as the Coast Guard's top officer because they have a dual connection with DHS. So because the Coast Guard is both a DOD asset and also a DHS asset, they had some special things. They cited border security issues, which she was a part of, and excessive focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion as the reasons for her dismissal. That is well within the right of the president. Cry harder, people. One of her allies said that the movement was petty and it's personal. Here's why I think it's funny. An official with DHS said, quote, she was terminated with cause 2 weeks ago today, and she was still living in the Admiral quarters. So imagine that you're not paying for the place you live. You guys who have been in the military know exactly what I'm talking about. You've given orders to vacate your barracks, your base housing, take your pick. And then you just refuse to do it. And 2 weeks later, they show up and they're like, by the way, 3 hours from now, we're burning all your stuff. Get out. Direct order. Just because you're the commandant of the Coast Guard, which might be the least of all the branches. I don't know. They're probably fighting with Space Force to find out who's the least, although Space Force probably has a bigger budget at this point. If you are in the military and you wear a uniform, no matter how many stripes you have, no matter how many stars you have, no matter how many ribbons and campaigns you have pinned on your chest, you answer to someone. Everybody knows it. It goes up to the Secretary of Defense, who goes up to the President of the United States. They call him the Commander-in-Chief, do they not? And the Commander-in-Chief's representatives fired you 2 weeks ago, and you decided to stick around, and now you're going to cry? And you're going to get NBC to do a favorable party, like saying that it's mean. Coast Guard leaders had given Fagan a 60-day waiver to find new housing, is what they claimed. But then they changed their mind. Maybe that's why, because it's time to get out. 60 days. Were you making efforts to get out? The best part is that she doesn't own a home. She's living in this other home that belongs to the United States taxpayer. Someone else is going to get that job and move in. So get out. Anyway, I just thought it was funny. And the favorable coverage is also funny. We're also getting nonstop crying right now about how do we defend the FBI? So again, this stuff touches me a little bit more personally than others. The FBI agents are saying that mass firings could dangerously weaken the FBI in 3 ways. They're worried about preventing terrorist attacks. Well, we've seen them. We've had terrorist attacks. How about January 1st? Where were they on preventing that? It seemed pretty weak. Investigating public corruption? Really? You got Bob Menendez. Who else have you gotten recently? They don't get a lot of PC cases because they don't focus on it. And staff retention could be damaged. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about your job. Your job only helps if it prosecutes the mission. And the other problem is, and many of you who listen to this program realize it, what we keep seeing is the so-called preventing terrorist attacks are terrorist attacks that the FBI is setting up. They're not going after and actually preventing them. So either you have a zero-fail mission and you're successful, or you don't. And if you're just interested in like looking like you're doing the job, screw you. By the way, this picture of them collecting evidence, what is that? That's from the Highland Park shooting outside of Chicago. You know, because it actually happened. Because the FBI can't prevent terrorist attacks. They can only investigate and find the people and dismantle folks after it happens. You cannot do pre-crime in the United States. Freedom is dangerous. Liberty has a price. That price is risk. So take it on. It doesn't stop them from going out there and campaigning on this, and they're getting a lot of cover from people like Caitlin Collins, who are pretty detestable. The funniest thing for me about all of this is that you're seeing senior FBI executives and former agents come out, and they're doing what my buddy Phil Kennedy calls the Mutual Admiration Society. When you see these people representing the FBI Agents Association, a group called FLEOA, the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association, the people that are going to go out there and campaign on behalf of FBI agents having their names hidden from their own employer at DOJ and therefore the president, what the hell are we talking about? Listen to this. This is part of the Mutual Admiration Society. These people are woke as hell. This is Natalie Barra. I think she's a former agent at this point. She's the female. Now, mind you, females constitute like 13% of FBI agents. Why is the president of the Agents Association female? And why are they into woke leftist causes? I've seen so much DEI bullshit come out of the Agents Association. People notify me about this all the time. Now you get an invite to sit on CNN. She's a pretty female sitting there wearing the badge right side up. Flip it upside down, honey. The agency is underwater, and it's been doing things that are its own discrediting. I'm going to give you some evidence of it in a second, including who they hired as counsel. But here she is getting a favorable interview from CNN, trying to make the case that the FBI is super important because they need to have their jobs, because jobs are really important to FBI agents. And anything else outside of that is nonsensical. I'll show you why. Here. All right, here's CNN.
What is the status of the lawsuits as of this moment?
So tomorrow there will be a hearing in federal court. And we'll see what the judge decides based on the filing for a temporary restraining order.
And what are you expecting, hoping? I mean, you're obviously hoping the judge will grant that, but what does that look like, and where do you go from there?
You know, I think it looks like I'm hoping that the court comes in and ensures that the DOJ keeps agents' information private.
And because that's been the concern. So essentially, this questionnaire went out last week, over the weekend. It hit their inboxes, basically saying if you worked on this in any kind of rank and file fashion, acknowledge it here. And their concern was that list being turned over, that their names could be used for termination or made public.
Right. So, you know, I spoke to an agent last week, and they were part of the recovery for the tragic plane crash that we had over the Potomac. And they were doing recovery of body parts, a gruesome scene. And then they had to go back to the office and fill out a survey about their investigative activities related to January 6th.
So what? You did the job. We all signed up for it. I've pulled dead Indians out of their bathrooms after 7 days in a closed room that was the size of a tiny closet where they rotted. And I got body fluids all over my nice shoes. It happens. It's called signing up for the job and getting paid to do it. You get paid a 6-figure salary to go to work for the U.S. government. Stop crying about it. You should be grateful. Anybody I know would say it's fantastic work for what it is. And for the amount of things they ask you to do, it is a tiny thing. By the way, everybody that was on that evidence response team volunteered to be on an evidence response team. Piss the hell off with your crying about this stuff. If you guys are seeing on either side of me right now, I've got the chat up. You can see the Rumble chat is running. It's fast. If you guys ever want to get into the fast chat, and they're the most positive people on the internet, go check over there. We're also seeing the folks over on X and on YouTube. So thanks so much for joining us over there. Make sure you guys have liked the video wherever you're at. I really appreciate it if you guys do that. If you're listening to the audio after the fact, a 5-star review is always appreciated. We have well over 1,000. I think we're over 1,100 over on Apple. We could build that up on Spotify too. That'd be great. People have told me they can't give me a 5-star. Give me the 4. I don't care. Just, if they won't let you do it, if they're trying to hold us back, let's just keep triumphing. I want to give you guys real inside information on this. Before we go over there, let me just say thanks to the folks. Like I said, we've had some really good sponsors that have kept us going. I'm going to say thanks to the folks at Patriot Coolers. We're going to get deeper into the FBI piece of it because I got some stuff that you probably don't realize. I shared this with Grant Stinchfield last night, and I want you to see it visually as well. So if you have not seen the visual of the podcast, you should jump it out either on the replay over on Rumble or find us on Spotify. So before we do, Patriot Coolers, they're always here. They're behind me on the wall. This is our sponsor wall, by the way. We've got our silent hat. We've got some other stuff. We've got the Patriot Coolers engraved tumbler. If you guys want to get your own, I drink out of one every single day. I've actually got 2 on the desk right now. Look, there's another one sitting over here because this is from yesterday's. I got to clean it. PatriotCoolers.com. The promo code is KYLE. They make an outstanding, durable, capable product. I've been using them since 2017. I used them when I was in the FBI. I spent my money on them and I carried them around the country. They have dings and nicks like anything else would. They've gotten better and better as the time goes on, and they make a fantastic screw-on, spill-proof. Look, coffee in here, not going to come out. I've dropped it. I've dropped it on airports. It'll, you empty it and take it with you wherever you travel. It's a fantastic tool. And then we also use their 50-quart cooler like almost every single day, but it certainly lives in the back of our minivan because when we go to Costco or we go shopping for groceries, I put my cold stuff in somewhere that's going to stay cold. You may not have even thought about this before, but having a cooler with you at all times in the rear of your vehicle, it's actually super helpful. They make different sizes. You should check them out. They're as good as a Yeti. They look better than a Yeti. I think they're a better design, and you can find them at PatriotCoolers.com. My promo code KYLE will save you 10%. We're working on getting you guys a Valentine's Day special, so stand by for that. It's going to be like a buy one, get one on tumblers, so I'll give you a new code for that shortly. But check out Patriot Coolers. Okay, we're going to keep pushing forward on this. I want to show you evidence. That's what we're all about here. I'm going to make a claim. I'm going to show you evidence. Here's where the FBI screwed up, and this is why there's a real problem. This is a cultural issue. Look at what you're seeing on the screen right now. Your affiant submits that there's probable cause to believe that fill in the blank violated 40 USC 5104 E2 Delta and Echo and Golf, which makes it a crime to willingly and knowingly use loud, threatening, or abusive language or engage in disorderly or disruptive conduct in a place or grounds, any Capitol building, blah, 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 blah. This is a freaking glorified trespassing charge. That's from a federal task force officer working for the FBI. So a local or a state cop or another federal agent with another agency that is getting the FBI's blessing. And what do you see of the name of that particular task force officer? Nothing. It is blanked out. It is redacted. Why is it redacted? Why are they going to submit a public statement of facts defaming with an allegation the person and not sign their damn name to it? Here's another one. It's the same judge, but this is from a different place. It doesn't matter what January 6th case you pulled up. Your affiant, redacted, has been employed as a blank by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Specifically, I'm assigned to the blank. It is redacted, where I currently lead a task with investigating criminal activities around the U.S. Capitol grounds. You are on a freaking January 6th squad. As a blank, I'm authorized by law or government agency to engage or supervise in the prevention, detention, investigation, or prosecution of violations of U.S. criminal law. You are a public servant and you can't even put your name to your work. Here's why that shit is crazy, and there's no other way to call it. My friends investigate cartel cases every day. They've done it across the country. They've done it from California to New Mexico to Georgia to Florida and all the way up to New York. They've gone after transnational organized crime groups, whether they be Tres de Agua, whether they be MS-13, whether they be other Sinaloa, you name it. If there are cartels, these people are violent and dangerous. They cut off people's heads, and they do not get to hide their names when they sign these affiant forms. When they go out there and fill out legal process, sign a search warrant, find an arrest warrant, they go and sign a statement of facts that is going to be a criminal complaint, and they bring someone into custody, their freaking name is out there every time. And you had the Department of Justice actively hiding the names of people that were involved in trespassing charges. Why? Because they were ashamed. Because they were embarrassed of doing that work. And it is telling when the Mutual Admiration Society of the FBI Agents Association and the Society for Former FBI Agents and so on SOCX FBI, when those idiots get out there and cry about this stuff, when they're out there trying to defend the names of people who are supposed to identify themselves to the public in the public course of their work. No one ever told you get to be a secret agent when you go to Quantico. I know. I went there. I used to tell people I was a secret agent because it's stupid and it's a joke, because everything I worked on in the counterintelligence sphere said secret on it. The joke was that I had a business card. The business card was meant for the public to call me back. I had a cell phone that was supposed to be called at all times. Why are their names redacted? Why are all of them redacted? It's because of the shame. They know they shouldn't have been doing these things. They know they shouldn't have been going after misdemeanor charges. And so do you. And so does the Trump administration, for whatever it's worth. It's really gross. And watch this. They're just hiding behind it. They cannot help but defend it. This is CBS. Scott McFarlane, who's their quote-unquote justice thing. He is the most effeminate, weak, soft-faced, soft-skinned man talking about this. And they're all just crying for FBI agents. They have a gun and a badge on purpose. They have legal authority to defend themselves. And there are cartels that are out there that occasionally decide to make threats. There are gangs that make threats against people that are doing real investigations that are not shameful. And you know what we do when that happens? We investigate the gang members. We find out who's making the threats. Sometimes we improve the security. The American taxpayer will spend $10,000 to $20,000 upgrading the security of agents' houses because they're doing dangerous work on occasion. And sometimes they get relocated because that's the only way to keep them safe. So what? And now you're going to say that some grandmother who was on a guided tour of the Capitol, or some guy who walked in and wore horns with body paint and was giving speeches on the floor of the Senate, that guy is someone you have to defend yourself from, that have never committed a crime after the fact? You notice there's never been a second January 6th. There's never been a second invasion, except for people by the political left that rolled into various capitals on the state level or the U.S. Capitol and were obnoxious. Why are they hiding the damn names? I'm going to show you again. Looks like this. It looks like this. And here's another reason. They've decided, the FBI Agents Association has contracted the services of a woman named Pamela Keith Esquire. She is a rabid leftist. She is a lunatic. This is her stuff that is on Twitter, publicly, posted for all to see. I'm going to quote her directly. "We may have reasons to criticize Biden for various things, but I'm not voting for Biden because I like Biden. I'm voting for Biden because," direct quote here, "I fucking hate MAGA." Those are her words. That's a woman who wants to argue in front of the Supreme Court to defend FBI agents. "I also love the Constitution, as imperfect as it is, and I'll do anything in my power to save, my democracy." There it is in all caps. How about this one? She also posted this. This is a woman who wants to argue in front of the Supreme Court. Quote, "The first official act Joe Biden should execute is to order DOJ to arrest and remove Alito, Roberts with an apostrophe S, Gorsuch, which she means Gorsuch, Thomas, Kavanaugh, and Barrett from the Supreme Court as enemies of the Constitution, domestic." She's calling for the arrest of the entire conservative side of the Supreme Court, who oftentimes side with people on the left because they're fair and honest operators, and not even people that we would all choose if we could. We'd have all Thomases, wouldn't we? You're going to have that lady represent you, FBI agents, in the association? You want the association to hire this idiot, this partisan hack, who thinks that the entire Supreme Court that's on the right should be arrested? You're nuts. You're nuts if you're associated with the FBI Agents Association. That Mutual Admiration Society is a discrediting organization, and it should be disbanded. And Natalie Barra should be ashamed of herself for going up there and representing it. Flip your badge upside down and stop hiring woke left hack idiots that are partisan actors. You couldn't even get somebody down the middle of the road that doesn't have stupid tweets like this up. It's basically you signing on to what should be a Hatch Act violation. If you're co-signing on this, if you're giving money to this sort of thing, you've already aligned with who you're part of. And you're part of the enemy of the American people. Scott Jennings did a piece talking about how they should just run a highlight reel. I was actually going to play it for you, but I'm not going to today. He did a talk about run the highlight reel of all these crazy leftists that are coming up with doubling down on gender ideology at the DNC, that are going out there saying, win, we will fight, whatever, defending U.S. aid. It is dumb. It is the dumbest thing possible. So here is Scott Jennings on CNN offering these people a fork. He's giving them an opportunity to understand how stupid their takes are, and they can't even handle it. It's amazing. Imagine telling the enemy, hey, you're making a mistake and we're going to dominate you, and them going, nuh-uh, you're just trying to trick me. I hope they keep doing this stuff. It's comedy theater for those of us that are watching. Scott Jennings presenting to them simple arguments. You're making bad decisions. You are making bad choices. Take the fork. They can't do it. Watch this.
He's describing what is currently the dumbest strategy in politics, which is Democrats taking the 20% side of every 80-20 issue in America. USAID, people want this pared down. They want it streamlined. They want to know where the money is going. Democrats have a meltdown. Today, Donald Trump signs executive order on keeping boys out of girls' sports. Democrats take the 20 side of that issue as well. All these issues, this is like Trump's superpower, finding a bunch of 80-20 issues, getting on the 80, and everybody who's sort of reflexively against him gets on the 20. And now the Democratic Party has like a 31% approval rating. This is why.
They can't understand that. They don't even get it. They don't get it. How about this one? Pamela Bondi. She was sworn in yesterday. She's going to execute a review of sanctuary cities. I'm actually going to read from the actual letter she sent out to the DOJ. Let me just hit you with the main points. They're going to create a thing called the Weaponization Working Group. I think I actually have a slide on that. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. Weaponization Working Group. There we go. So Pam Bondi, new AG, launches this Weaponization Working Group. This was announced to DOJ employees. I've got a copy of the email right here. Weaponization Special Counsel Jack Smith and his staff, who spent more than $50 million targeting Donald Trump. They're going to be investigated and looked at. Federal cooperation with the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, and Letitia James going after Donald Trump in the state of New York and the city of New York. They're going to look into that. They're going to check the people that were pursuing investigative tactics and unethical prosecutions for things that happened inside January 6th. That doesn't mean everybody, which is distinct. She says it in all bold, as distinct from good faith actions by federal employees who were simply following orders from superiors. If you were directly told that you had to do something that was a lawful order, in other words, here is a federal case and you will open it, that is a different animal. Should they have resisted? Probably. But those are not the problems. It's the supervisors. They're going to look into that. January 2023, they're going to look into a thing called the Radical Traditionalist Catholics. Yours truly exposed that. Steve Friend exposed the other one. We're talking about things that have been pretty well documented. The Justice Department's guidance, policy memorandums, and practicing concerning the investigations of parents at school board meetings and children who had expressed sincere and good faith concerns about local government. From an October 4th, 2021 memorandum from the AG, the previous AG. That's also a disclosure I made to the... I mean, this stuff that we've been touching on have had national implications on accident. They're also going to go after criminal prosecutions of freedom of access to clinic entrances. So the FACE Act, the nonviolent protesters. I've got a buddy who pulled out all of the FACE Act violations and found out they denied prosecution of the violent ones, which were on the left, and they only targeted the people on the right who were Christian conservatives that were nonviolent. So that's going to come out. That's what needs to happen with your government. That's how you win. But it's actually a win for everybody. You should have your government not act in a partisan hack fashion. How crazy is this stuff? Again, FACE Act violations was part of my original disclosure in October of 2021. All of this stuff was obvious to me when I was on the inside, and it's going to be real easy for them to pull out these chains. And what I hope they do is they offer $1,000 rewards for turning in people that have been doing evil stuff inside the agencies. That would be my hope. Because there's one thing that federal agents will do. There's one thing that federal employees will do. They will do what's best for me. What's in it for me? $1,000 for turning in my colleagues. The thing is, we shouldn't give anybody immunity because we find out you did something too. It's like, cool, we'll use you. We'll give you $1,000. By the way, that might be your severance pay. That's the best thing. That would be a fantastic fork. We talked about money a little bit. You heard Scott Jennings talk about the 80-20 thing. They're finding stuff that nobody agrees with, and they're putting their mouth and their money behind it. Maybe it's stuff like this. Politico and the AP getting supported. This is White House press secretary talking about it. Okay. Carolyn Leavitt, she says, Levitt rather. She's like, we were giving $8 million to Politico. $8 million. Listen to this.
So upon coming out here to the briefing room, I was made aware of the funding from USAID to media outlets, including Politico, who I know has a seat in this room. And I can confirm that the more than 8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayers' dime will no longer be happening. The DOGE team is working on canceling those payments now. Again, this is a whole of government effort to ensure that we are going line by line when it comes to the federal government's books. And this president and his team are making decisions across the board on, do these receipts serve the interests of the American people? Is this a good use of the American taxpayers' money? If it is not, that funding will no longer be sent abroad, and American taxpayers will see significant savings because of that effort.
Real simple stuff. There was also $400,000 in subscriptions to Politico. Apparently, they have a $10,000 a month option that you can spend, or $10,000 a year option that you can set up for. Here's the crazy part. They found out that there were 172 users at the Department of Energy that were paying for this expensive stuff. It comes out to like $2,300 and change a person per month, or $2,300 a year. We're spending $400,000 for subscriptions to like outside entities. It's a wonder that these entities also are very favorable in reporting when a huge chunk of your money, and $8 million is a lot. Now, people were trying to argue like, well, the American taxpayer is actually getting some benefit, just like some companies can. Companies can spend money on that. The federal government does it themselves. Their contract, and do you need to have 170 or 800 people that are paying $10,000 a year for these licenses? How many people need to be in those decision-making rooms? Can you not just disperse it? Companies can make better decisions than that. And I guarantee you, if a CEO or a CFO or some like senior analyst needs access to a license, then they pay for it. They don't pay for everybody to have it, and they don't keep those licenses active. If you think the federal government makes good decisions with your money, we got another thing to show you. So, in any case, that was going on there. Another thing that's going on is they're doubling down on this DEI stuff. So this is the same thing where Scott Jennings was up there talking, and he's been really funny about this stuff. And he's giving them the hint, hey, take the fork. Stop focusing in on DEI. Stop focusing on race. Stop listening to what you think is right. The American people do not. This is a woman. It's Black History Month. We're elevating Black voices. They're on CNN. This woman's name is Ashley Allison. I'm going to show you who she was in a second. This is one of the funniest clips, and maybe the funniest self-owns. She was, hold on, let me pull up her actual title here because it's totally worth seeing that. She was working in the Obama White House as the Associate Director of Public Engagement. She worked for Obama, and watch what she says about her paycheck. Sounds like, thanks a lot, Obama.
I do not have the same opportunity as you. I know I don't.
And you know
and
that
I know
too.
what, Scott.
And you know that.
Let me just tell you about me.
I'm going to let you finish, but I want to answer this.
I'm not talking about how you feel. I'm talking about how I feel. Me, a Black woman in this country.
But not in this city.
And I will run. And if you want
I'm a New Yorker, not in this city. You cannot say that. You can't say that in this city.
I'm not talking about New York. I'm talking about Ashley Allison right here. I got a law degree, a master's, and 2 bachelors. Probably more education than all of y'all added up together at this table, right? And I have always been the least paid person on payroll at every institution I have worked in. And it's not because...
Even in the White House?
Even in the White House.
Well, whose fault is that? I don't think you...
Seriously, whose fault is that? She's on the Obama White House archive page. This is her, Ashley Ashton. Alice. I can't say it. Ashley Allison. She sounds like she should be a Marvel character. Associate Director of the Office of Public Engagement. She was the Deputy Director in the Office of Public Engagement. In this role, she manages a team of associate directors, and she apparently was underpaid to her own estimate. By the way, she got fatter. She looks heavier on CNN. Maybe it's just the hair. I don't know. Whose fault is it? Maybe it's that stupid attitude of like, I deserve more things because I have more degrees. Were you competent? Because credentialism is a very leftist thing. It's non-American. Americans don't care about credentials. We don't care about your title or your crown or your landed gentry, upbringing. What we care about is, can you do the damn job? Are you the best? So get the hell out with that nonsense. Freaking Black women have it harder in America than anybody else. You live on a fantasy planet. Black women get jobs that they have no business getting. They get into degrees and they have those abilities to go and get scholarships that they should have no business getting. You can tell she's not even good at arguing. She's trying to make this argument in a place where it's Washington, D.C. and New York City. You're going to say that Black women have it harder? Nobody believes that. Not even you. You'd have to be a fool. It's crazy. All right, so you know what we should do about all this stuff? This stuff was already done. I think I teased this yesterday and I blew it. I didn't play it for you. I will give you a palate cleanse in a second. How about we just take the axe to all the stuff that sucks? This idea is not new. You can tell by the footage. This is aged. This is Milton Freeman just talking about what's not useful. I'll post this over on Locals as well. KyleSeraphin.com if you guys want to see the whole video. It's not that long. Real simple. What can we do? Here's DOGE's role play. Here is their plan and their blueprint.
Keep them or abolish them? Department of Agriculture.
Abolish.
Gone. Department of Commerce.
Abolish.
Gone. Department of Defense.
Keep.
Keep it. Department of Education.
Abolish.
Gone. Energy.
Abolish.
How?
Except that energy ties in with the military.
Well, then we shove it under defense.
That's
the little bit that handles the nuclear,
right, that ought to go under
plutonium
defense.
and so forth goes under defense, but we abolish the rest of it. Health and Human Services?
There is room for some public health activities to prevent contagion. Such a thing as, for example...
So you'd keep the National Institutes of Health, say, and the Center for Disease Control down in Atlanta?
No, not the National Institute. No, those are mostly research agencies. No. That's a question of whether the government should be involved in financing research.
And the answer is no.
Well, that's a very complicated issue, and it's not an easy answer with respect to that.
We'll eliminate half of the Department of Health and Human Services?
Like
okay, one half. There we go. Housing and Urban Development?
Out.
Oh. Didn't even pause over that one. Department of the Interior.
Oh, well, but housing and urban development has done an enormous amount of harm. My God. If you think of the way in which they've destroyed parts of cities.
He's not wrong. Again, it's a great clip. I'll play it all for you guys. Department of Interior, spoiler alert, gone. Like, basically, he thinks the federal government shouldn't own any land. I know some people that would disagree with that, but it's interesting. If you want to hold principles that make sense, then you don't put the federal government in charge of it. You divest it to the state. You get closer to the people, and you let those people run things. It's awesome. Okay, I promised you a little bit of self-reflection. Not everybody in this like younger generation, and I'm sure that this Ashley Allison is about the same age. She's got to be in her like early 30s. I found this clip this morning. I found it very charming. There is a generational difference, and it is something that folks that listen to this program tend to fall into one. You're either elder millennials, you're Gen Xers, you're boomers. You fall into this category of people where we all share one thing. And you don't know it maybe, but it's real specific. If you listen to the call-in show, we talk about this quite a bit. Again, that's going to be tonight at 7 Central. It's 8 p.m. Eastern time. You can join us over on any of the places you're seeing us. But if you want to call in, you got to be a member and a subscriber on either X or a subscriber on the locals community. The thing that we all have in common that we tend to agree on is we had an analog childhood. Now, we had some degree of our adulthood being digitalized. We experienced the internet maybe in our late teens, maybe in our early 20s, maybe 30s or 40s, depending on how old you are. But what you find is that we share that common experience of growing up and running around outdoors and no one knew where we were. We had the same experience of having a wired telephone and not having a cell phone as we grew up, that we didn't have the internet in our pocket. We didn't have the answers to everything at all times, that we didn't have this 24-hour news cycle, that we used to trust institutions, and that we did things that, got us hurt. We rubbed dirt in it and we moved on. That's what we all have in common. This new generation that are younger than me, that are in their like late 20s right now, most of them, I'm just on the edge of being old enough to be their parent. And I see it. It's charming and sad. And I know that they're missing out on something. It's giving me guidance on how my wife and I want to raise our children because we want them to have more of an analog childhood. Do they have more TVs and screens around them than we did? Yes. But do they have access to them? Absolutely not. Because I don't want to let this happen. Anyway, this is a cute, charming, funny gal who's whispering. She says she's 27. She doesn't know how to spell. Some of you don't know how to spell, even though you did have all the benefits. But I think folks that are younger understand that spell check is actually really terrible too. And I never thought about it. So here you go. This is kind of charming.
I'm 27 years old in a corporate job, and I do not know how to spell. Okay? Because I'm from the generation where I'm in 5th grade, and I had a laptop with spell check on it. That's ridiculous. So now I'm 27 years old, listening to podcasts on how to sound out words and how to spell, because I don't know how. Mind you, I'm educated. I have a bachelor's, and I cannot spell. Ask me how to spell any word. I can't do it. I cannot do it. And if I can't spell, I know my little sisters who are a generation behind me, they can't spell either.
They can't spell.
We're toast.
They're toast.
Goodbye. I'm 27 years old.
It's really cute to me. I don't know why maybe it's the glasses and the book and that she thinks it's funny. She knows it's funny. She reminds me of like pretty young women that I used to know that were like, they were reflecting on their own weakness and they just knew they couldn't do it. It's so cute. Anyway, teach your kids how to sound out words. What a weird superpower we have. Again, reading is a superpower. Finding out that so many adults in Philadelphia cannot read. That's a legacy of government intervention and the Department of Education. So fork it out, folks. Get rid of these things. They didn't serve the purpose. That poor gal who looks highly functional. She looks like she dresses herself, cleans herself, has a nice appearance, walks into a job, probably has like a mental competency to be able to do it, wasn't taught basic things like how to do phonics. She was robbed. It's not even her fault. Anyway, I just think that stuff is, well, it's tragic. That's the legacy of a lot of this technological revolution, but it's the legacy of putting governments into places where they don't belong, where they do a crap job. You guys know it. They're all out there. Anyway, all right, go out and be good to yourselves. Go be good to the others. If you meet a government worker, encourage them. Hey, take the fork if you're so interested. If you don't think you need us, we don't think we need you either. We're fine with it. We'll do okay. Go find a private sector job. We'll love you still. That's all there is. If you guys are sticking around, stay on this channel because you will get the American Radicals podcast. We're going to come right in to Steve Friend, Garrett O'Boyle. They'll be talking about something. I don't even know what it is, but you'll see the raid happening over on Rumble. If you're watching anywhere else, you can find them at ANRAB Pod. That's going to be on X. It's going to be on, I think that they're on YouTube. Anyway, otherwise you'll find them on the replay. You can find them AMRADPOD. Those are my buddies. Go check them out. See you guys again tomorrow for a Friendly Friday. God bless you. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.